Let's talk about Stacey. Her actions in the last couple of episodes were quite confusing. Before we get into it, here's a quick disclaimer. Stacey in the beginning was quite confident in not really sharing her interest in Izzy with everyone else in the pods. This might have just been a self-protective gesture, but could also be indicative of her competitive side. Anyway, I wasn't really mad about it. You can see from the start, Izzy was comparing her relationship with him to other relationships he had in the pods. And she was starting to pick up on this. We're going to notice this being a main theme between Izzy and Stacey's relationship, this competition between her and other girls for Izzy's affection, or the female-to-female competition that I discussed Izzy is very big on. She's very self-determined. Again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And you do kind of see her be a little bit respectful in the pods about not wanting to judge Johnie for the relationship she had with Izzy. And so it was quite surprising to see it completely turn around once she was with Izzy. She may have been a little competitive or a little bit secretive. And the downright mean girl behavior we saw was quite surprising because we didn't see any of that within the pods. Again, you do see her high maintenance side showing a little bit, but it's again not necessarily a bad thing. But you do see that difference in values between her and Izzy. But again, I mentioned that Izzy just kept saying what seems to have been what she wants to hear. When they visit Izzy's apartment, she calls him out on the lost and found drawer. She is quite articulate in expressing that she did not like the fact that it felt like he was trying to show her that he had a past with many other women. Being constantly compared to other people in your significant other's relationships or their past can be very distressing for someone. It can play on someone's self-esteem, it can play on their self-worth. This whole comparing her to other girls like Johnie or his past, or reminding her of his past, I could see it being damaging to her, slowly chipping away at her self-esteem or self-worth. Feelings of inadequacy may come up as well. When she did bring this up, she was in no way validated by Izzy, and so she had what she calls a meltdown, which could be a mix of emotions, including anxiety or a panic attack. So although she may be very confident presenting, you can see it really has taken a toll on her. She does think about this. Here's where we see her mean side come out, and she calls Johnie a joke. She acknowledges that they were friendly to each other, but then Johnie reacted quite poorly to her being picked over. And I do remember Johnie saying that Izzy made a mistake and he would regret it, etc., etc. So let's validate that for a second, and you can see that she was quite hurt by this because she had felt empathy for Johnie before. Now this possible feeling of betrayal, constantly having been compared to other girls, as well as Izzy being obsessed with Johnie, might have been a big trigger for Stacey. Stacey also said she wished she had put something in the cookies so that if Johnie ate them, she would be eating. This is where it's kind of unwarranted. But she saw Izzy again being super hyped up over Johnie. She again asks not to be compared to her and calls out Izzy, saying that he's so grateful for Stacey because he got her instead of Johnie. This man keeps drilling insecurities into her. But I would absolutely not support this kind of behavior where she makes an absolute statement about Johnie's character. I want to point out that although I'm talking about how Izzy is involved in possibly reinforcing all these insecurities in Stacey and also manipulating her into believing that Johnie is a bad person and that in some cases she is valid to feel what she does, that this behavior is unacceptable and very mean. Stacey and Izzy then try to change everyone's perspective on Johnie and were unsuccessful. When they get home, Izzy's still fired up, but she says she doesn't want to talk about Johnie anymore. Izzy does not care about her wishes. He keeps trying to defend that he was trying to look out for Chris, who Stacey said doesn't want him to look out for him. And when Izzy said this, it was very telling on how invested he was in Johnie and her competition with Stacey. You could imagine how poorly Stacey must have felt by hearing such a strange statement. She points out to Izzy that he's only passionate about Stacey when Johnie is involved. Again, it just never ends. He keeps comparing her to other girls, Johnie, etc. And she notes it for like the millionth time. Izzy then turns around the conversation to her, saying that she's not appreciative of his efforts. And once again, the elephant in the room about her being compared to other women is ignored. The conversation then ends with Izzy crying and saying that he feels like he's not good enough, when she's literally voiced the same thing and been dismissed. She says she was promised all of these things but never really got them. The meeting with Izzy's mother was kind of interesting because although Stacey does not clearly say that she wants to be Izzy's wife, she does talk about a bond that she cannot describe. My inclination is to believe that this bond is a bond of insecurity or insecure attachment. Maybe they both have this need to be chosen or be the number one. Izzy's playing on her insecurities about being one of many, and she's put out a list of actions that she needs to feel secure in a relationship. Izzy then buys her a bunch of gifts about him feeling inadequate, and she says she feels sad about making him feel that way. He takes her on a paid by producers private plane ride and a private dinner. But again, based on his previous body language and something that I vaguely remember hearing, that he does not have good credit or something. So I really see this being an effort to romance her, possibly love bomb her. And again, he denies denying it or hiding it. It's just a cycle. Izzy seems to romance her and then make her feel less than or inadequate and compare her to other girls. And then he says the right things at the right time, but then never really admits to any of the things that he's actually doing. So you tell me, was Stacey a mean girl? Or did her relationship with Izzy bring out the worst in her? We know she's straightforward and upfront, but she's also been messed with for the past whatever many days she's been with Izzy. She's valid in her feelings, but we will not excuse her behavior towards Johnie.